thinking more about free as in freeing up the way that people's thinking. So I often think people are very closed in their thinking, and I always remember a lot of this comes back down to most people I know who are very enthusiastic about learning technologies, who've been very passionate about it, have been, you know, going around, because the reason they started using technology wasn't because they like shiny things. There are a few of us around, but you know, people even think I'm one of those. I'm not a fan of shiny. You know, there'll be people going, "Oh yes, he is." But no, for me, the reason I use technology and the reason why I'm there is because it made life easier. It made life better. It made life quicker. You know, it allowed me to do more things. And you know, I was at the Bristol Harbour Festival, and the BBC Digital were there, and they had a tent full of old computers from the Museum of Computing. So they had the first Apple, or so I think it was an Apple II actually. They had a ZX Spectrum, BBC Micro, and you know, and I remember sharing a few of those photographs and tweeting, oh, I had one of those, and I'm thinking, when I was a kid, you know, I wasn't really interested in computers. There was a Commodore PET in the school, you know, one single computer for the whole school, and I didn't do computer science because I wasn't interested in it. I remember at home we had a Commodore VIC-20, the predecessor to the 64, and again it was something like, oh, I can play a game on it, but it wasn't something I was really that interested in. It was only really when I was doing a course at the what was then Huddersfield Polytechnic after graduation, and someone introduced me to spreadsheets. Now I know this sounds, but I actually put that probably down to where I really started to engage with seeing technology as a tool and about making life easier, because I've been creating cash flow forecasts on paper. And the ability to be able to do it in a spreadsheet where it does all the calculations and makes other changes was just like an eye-opener for me. I mean, I'm not saying I hadn't used technology before. A friend of mine at university had created his own social network. This was 1988. You know, he'd actually created what I would call, probably we would call Facebook today, in terms of doing it. I sent my first email in 1987 and got flamed by an administrator at another university for sending the wrong kind of email. So I didn't touch it again for 10 years. But you know, those early days. But I think it was using spreadsheets on a, you know, on a computer. This is days before even Windows was mainstream. Was something like, actually, this is about making life easier. And then in terms of understanding that, you know, a typewriter was great because it was easier than writing, but a word processor made life even easier. And it's when I started teaching, it was really understanding what a computer could do was free up time. For me, it was kind of very critical about that. And, you know, it was often seen what people were doing was, you know, they were recreating the same thing week in, week out. They would go, you know, they're just doing it again and again. They're spending huge amounts of time planning, huge amounts of time sorting out what they were going to do. And I really thought, actually, no, this is not something I want to do. I want to free up my time. I don't want to spend, as I was, 60, 70 hours a week working. I quite like it, but I enjoyed it. But I thought I want to do stuff. And technology allowed me to do that much more effectively. So sort of things that I was starting to do was, well, rather than, you know, write out acetates, which is to use on OHPs, you know, I've shown my age now, but I'd print them out, having created them in some kind of graphics package, you know, in terms of, which probably was freelance graphics, I think, or possibly another one of my probably those tools that have really influenced you was Serif's Page Plus, which I got free on the cover of PCW or something like that. I mean, I then went out and bought it, but that just shows, you know, free gift made a huge difference to a piece, you know, that software. Well, I mean, I remember we then bought some licenses for the college I was at, because it just allowed us to create covers and assignments which we could then reuse and repurpose, that kind of concept. And then we were sharing these across the entire team, and showing other people how they were working. But one of the things was that what this really did was I started planning. And that's where, you know, being able to create a table with a scheme of work in that could be flexible, adjustment, get all the resources done. So I remember my last few years at that college, I printed everything off. I got it all printed by our print unit, stored it all in a cupboard. I did have a cupboard, it was great. And of course, the entire year meant I never needed to do any last minute preparation, because all the lessons were planned, all the resources were there, they're all in folders. And I do remember getting taken aside by my line manager at the time. He goes, James. I go, what? And he goes, are you still working here? And I looked at him and said, yes. He goes, your photocopying bill is zero. You know, I just wasn't doing any photocopying. Everybody else was standing at the photocopier wasting time. And for me, I was like, no, I don't need to do it. I don't need to stand there. You know, and it was also that's also the time when I started to build a VLE, you know, because we didn't have one. That didn't exist. So I built a website, to be honest. But I put on there all the resources. I put on there all the handouts, the assignments. And, you know, the learners at the time, most of them did not have internet at home, but they had it in the library, they had it in the workplace. And as a result, with that, you know, I missed last week's lessons. I don't need to worry. I can download everything from the website. It was just, you know, a very simple thing, but it actually made a real difference in terms of my workload, but also their ability to get those things quickly at a time and place that suited them. And I think that moment in my career was when I really started to understand, you know, these technologies have real benefits to what we're trying to do. And they're kind of going off on those kind of things. But I do think, you know, planning is critical, and it doesn't matter whether you use technology or not. Planning a curriculum is really important. And, you know, when people say, oh, well, the syllabus has changed. Yes, syllabus has changed all the time, but as far as I'm aware, the cardiovascular system hasn't changed much in the last million years. You know, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations doesn't get rewritten every year. Pythagoras' theorem is still the same. And to me, that's one of the key things that we don't do well in FE, which is opening up what we do and sharing what we do. And I think the same goes for HE as well. We talk about OER, we talk about open educational resources, and there's lots of things around. But freeing up is twofold. One is freeing up, I'm going to share what I do. I'm going to share what I've done. But also it's freeing up your mind, opening up your mind to say, I will take advantage of what other people do. And actually understanding that, to be honest, you probably do that anyway. I mean, most teachers I know use other people's stuff all the time, and they get something called a book and photocopy it in terms of using other people's stuff. But I think it's that combination of understanding that you don't need to do everything yourself. There are some fantastic resources out there. You know, a simple example, teaching A-level economics. John Sloman, who is one of, you know, who wrote a kind of standard A-level text, was teaching at the UE at the time, University of West of England, and he put all these PowerPoint slides on the UWE website for people to download. And it's like, great. And I, you know, to be honest, they were terrible from a design perspective. I think it was colors on black or something. You know, it was just, they looked awful. But part of me was saying, well, if I use these, this then frees up time to do something different and something else. It wasn't about, and I mean, that was critical for me, freeing up my time to do things, you know, to work with the learners, to do different things, and to play and create things. So as a result, you know, could use John Sloman's slides for kind of economic theory, the macroeconomics, which then freed me up to be able to create a game on the creation of money using chocolate bars, which is still, I've still bumped into people who played that game 20 years ago, who said that was the best lesson they ever had. So never underestimate the power of chocolate.
I like that idea of freeing up time. That's been one of the problems we've got. Like, I suppose it's relevant to FELTAG as well at the moment, is it to get for people to be able to create the new stuff. They've got to have time to do it, but they're so locked into the kind of treadmill at the moment. So if you can share, make use of somebody else's stuff, credit them with it, and just like you were saying, you can free up time to create a game, create a new bit, share that. There's a story, a typical one, of the college I used to work at and another college. We showed them how to use Google Forms. They then used the Google Forms to create a shopping basket for their special needs shop. Our special needs department saw that and used that. It was a great idea. We you know, of the genetic Darwinian type of evolution of ideas, that you share it, you mix and match it. It's a great thing.
You know, don't underestimate the value of free software in terms of free services that are out there. Sometimes you can do things, but don't underestimate the value of proprietary software either. You know, there's things that work for some people, some things that work for others. But it's always about thinking about other people rather than your own internal. You know, so people are saying to me, oh, what should I use, Google Docs or Microsoft Word? And I go, no, use Apple's Pages, because I actually like that application. But that's my view, not what's best for other people. But also, the, you know, second aspect about, you know, to me, technology is a solution to problems. That's why, you know, that's what inventors do. That's what people do. The creative people who go out and look at these new things. They're providing solutions to problems. Sometimes they're problems we don't know we have. Sometimes they create new problems to solve. But actually, from my perspective, the reason I'm use learning technologies and why I use technology is it's about, you know, freeing up my time, freeing up my ability to be able to be more creative, ability to freeing up my stubbornness to be able to not, you know, to work in isolation, because I can now share and create. I mean, you know, the reason I write a blog is because I've got ideas, and a blog allows me to share those ideas freely with other people. And often they come back and people say either they agree or they don't agree. And I think, to me, you know, that's when you talk about what is free, that's what I mean in terms of technology. It's about freeing up people to be able to do things.
Yeah, the idea about sharing, and what I was saying about the Darwinian evolutionary kind of model of change, it can't happen unless you have what you might call sex. You know, the sexual life of ideas. You share something, somebody else remixes it, passes it on, and you get an evolution of ideas, and you save time and everything. And I remember the people were saying, like, the comments on blogs were the first kind of instance of Web 2, where you had interaction going on. You know, you'd post, which was the published bit, but then you had interactive forum in the comments afterwards.